This is an extension, another podcast for Justice for Arlene. My name hasn't changed. It's still Don Matheson, and we're coming live from Lacombe, Alberta. And just a couple of notes on the last one we just finished. I was trying to show this crest that we have, the Mountain Police crest, and that Walt Disney said he owned, or the Mountain Police said he owned it. He doesn't. But I don't know why I was reaching for that, because just over my left shoulder is a massive crest. Weighs about 9 pounds, and I had 9 of them made for personal friends. And it says the same thing. I also want to correct. I had made a comment about 6,000 Canadians without a family doctor, but I noticed that later on in the podcast I had said 6 million. Well, I'm one of those 6 million. My file is currently being transferred from Salmon Arm to Lacombe, Alberta. It's in the movement now, so in a couple of weeks, I will also have a family doctor. I've met him, and he's a really good chap. He's from South Africa. He's been here about 2.5 years. And just a word for a local doctor here. My heart goes out to his family. He was involved in a canoeing accident on the Clearwater River, and he's now deceased. And that again will affect a lot more people in Lacombe, Alberta and surrounding area. So let's just Canadians to try and do a little more about what we're not doing. And I know the Henning family is waiting for me to step right into Justice for Arlene. And my heart goes out to that family as well. But I'm going to lay out here part of the reasons why nothing is being done by the police, the Crown, the coroner, and the court itself. And I want to say again, I have a sign on my vehicle that says, and one says right here, if I want to hold it up, our courts, our judicial system are a national disgrace. And what are they doing about it? What are the people inside the court system doing about any of this except covering it up? I think every province is short about 40 judges. And when we were doing this live, Justice for Arlene, there were 8 courtrooms in Kelowna, and only 2 were open. 2 out of 8. So what effect does that have on the everyday public? It has a hell of an effect. And the court can whine and cry all it wants about being too busy. Then get some more judges and open up your courts. Okay. This hearing, even today, this podcast, most of the documents I'm going to refer to were in camera. And I have to be careful how I do this. I was asked to send some to a political party. I would have been arrested for that, because if anybody's going to put some of these documents out, I'm going to do it. Okay. I have to stay within the parameters of in camera. And I wonder how many of you even know what that means. That means that if you have no involvement with this court case, you can't even go in there. You can't even sit and listen. And my concern is why. We had several people show up at one of the hearings. Paid their own expense, flew in, hotels, motels, food. And again, if I go to say the conversation between Judge Clark Burnett, I'm breaching that confidentiality of information. So when I pause, I have to stop. I don't enjoy that. I can't finish a full sentence. I can lead up to it, but I can't talk about anything inside that courtroom, or I can be arrested. But partway through these hearings, I think I said it the other day, the Crown, Mrs. McCallum, Clark Burnett, myself, a lady looking after the automatic dictation material, and a sheriff was in that courtroom. And I know I never let any information out of that courtroom, and I am quite sure Clark Burnett didn't. And the bailiff, the sheriff, would have no reason for that, nor would the court reporter. So I get a call from K Division, Alberta. Now, bear in mind, I'm in Kelowna, British Columbia, where I live. And it's a staff sergeant, Zakuluk, who says to me, Don, what my outfit wants to do is denude your identity, find something on you that you can't stay involved in this court case. Well, they can do whatever they want with that. I'm not afraid of my file. In fact, I would give, again, any of you people full permission to have my complete jacket, my not my court file, my police file from the time I joined. I have nothing to hide there. But for an organization that I served wants to denude my identity or cause a problem for me to get involved in another court case, knowingly, I shouldn't have any compulsion about saying anything about what's in camera, but that's a separate case. But the Mounted Police and the systems that are involved in this are going to go to any length to shut this down. Yeah. And when we're done this podcast, I'm going into another one that's similar circumstances, only another police force. But I'm going to continue to give you 50 years, probably close to 60, of what the Mounted Police have covered up all the way along. And we're supposed to learn by our mistakes, but this mistake is we didn't learn by it. And I'm going to show you the history of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police back a lot of years to show you that they're still doing the same thing today, only they're doing it worse, not better. So I'm bound to stay by the court order in camera, but someone in that courtroom isn't bound to do the same. So what's the expression? What's sauce for the goose should be sauce for the gander. There has been such a cover-up in this justice for Arlene. It's not disgusting, it's criminal. And the documents we will produce, not directly today. Some of them I'm going to talk about. But over a period of time yet, I'm going to name every mounted police officer that's involved in this right now that's covering it up. Okay. Originally, there were probably 9 mounted police officers, all of a lower rank, that were involved in the investigation of this. And now there's an additional 15 to 20 higher ranks that are trying to cover this whole thing up. And another member that's an ex-member right now inside the force that has the capabilities of really going into some of this has sent me an awesome pile of documents. And it shows the number of police officers that just don't want this to come forward. And that's right down to Mike Farnworth, David Eby. So I'm going to this is a binder. I'm going to look away a couple of times. I don't like doing that. This is a binder with, I told you before, with 22 witnesses. 22. And I did the same last time. I banged this book. And all 22 of these have never been interviewed by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Yet they have crucial evidence as to who Bert Westerveld was and why this came about to happen. So the question, why are the Mounted Police not wanting to interview these people here. The court, I pounded this the last podcast. The court has this book. And during that, Clark Burnett went down these 22 witnesses. And now I can't say anything more. How the hell do you get the truth out if you're blocked from saying it? I want to tell you the conversation he had about these, but I can't do it. So what I'm asking the court to do now is to release this in camera. And if not, I want Clark Burnett to explain why it can't be released. I had said last podcast that justice for Arlene does not involve the reason things are in camera. There's no small children involved. We don't have to protect them. There's no undercover police officers that are working undercover. We don't have to protect them. And we don't have to protect the security of our government. That's the three reasons that goes into camera. So why doesn't Clark Burnett or the new Crown prosecutor explain to you why this can still stay in camera? Because I'm having a hell of a time trying to get around that. A few things that were said to me a few times. Well, Mr. Matheson, you know how this works. You used to be a police officer. And again, this was in camera. And I said, well, I don't remember ever this happening when I was in uniform. So where have our courts gone with this? What's the authority they have to do this and they don't have it? Maybe you should be talking to the Crown prosecutor. Or more important, how about you talk to David Eby, who's now the Premier of British Columbia? In 2016, David Eby was the Attorney General. I've already said this to you once, and none of this is in camera. At the same time, Arlene was going out of that canoe into the water, 2016. And he was aware that over $100 million was taken out of seniors' trust accounts by their lawyers, by their attorney. Call them what you want. I remember saying that as well. Our financial consultants, brokers, high-end car dealers. And he did nothing. And there was also $590 million assessed in fines to those lawyers. And I know that between 40 and 80,000 were paid. Why weren't the rest paid? And why are these lawyers still being able to practice? Okay, who polices the lawyers? Who polices the police? Who polices the doctors? Who polices the teachers? They do. And believe me, everything we're doing right now is getting covered up worse than it was 40, 50, 60 years ago. And I can say that because I lived there then. Most of you can't. And most of you are too busy looking after yourselves to help somebody else right now. So if you get caught in something coming up and you go public and you want help, guess why you're not getting it? So I'm going to read these informations. There's a political party that are anxiously awaiting them. I don't blame them. But I'm not doing anything that's in camera. I lead these informations with Carla Jackson, who made sure I did them right so they couldn't be tossed. She knows the system. And by the way, I know I said it the last time. Carla Jackson no longer works in the courthouse in Kelowna. Was it convenient? Or did they let her go? That's another answer I want. And I want that from the court system. But these were filed separate before I even went before Clark Burnett. They went with me into court with this binder. Okay? And at the top of the page of the transcript, it's in camera. There's a court docket number on every one of these informations. They're not civil, they're criminal. And they're on the top of this transcript that happened inside the court. Every one of those numbers apply to these informations. There was a real panic, and I sensed that in court. I can say how I felt with what was going on in court, but I can't repeat the words. You know, when you see a judge, and again, I'm on two sides of the fence because I liked Clark Burnett. He was very thorough. But what's created the change? Is he a fixer now? Is he going to make sure this doesn't come forward? That's how I felt listening to him and the first Crown prosecutor, Simone McCallum. If you had been there and watched it and listened to it, you can see that sometimes where you work. We call them suckholing, brown-nosing. Oh, you be nice to me and I'll be nice to you. We're talking about somebody's life here. Okay. And because I was a former police officer, when I watch that as a civilian, it makes me sick. So I'm going to read. Where did I leave my glasses? It might be in the kitchen, Greg. Give me a minute here. I left the room a few minutes ago and I set my glasses down. Excuse me. Where did I put them? I can't read without them. They're right there. No, that's not. I think they're under the table. Well, that sure as heck doesn't help me any. I don't need glasses for driving or anything, but I need them close up. I'm gonna go ahead and do an attempt because I'm not sure where I set them down. The penmanship here is quite fine, but 96368 96638-1, 96637-1, 96636-1, 96368-1, 96367-1, 95916-1, and 95915-1. They all relate to criminal informations, not civil. So I'm aware that I don't prosecute this. I'm aware that I don't have to pay costs for all witnesses that are coming. I'm aware that I don't have to pay for their accommodations. And I was threatened that I would have to do that. What the hell is going on? Are they trying to cover up for David Eby that bad? They knew he was going to become the premier. Is that why this is happening? Maybe somebody inside the court system or the Attorney General's department, Mike Farnworth, Peter Juke, maybe you can tell me why. So the information that's laid, it's an information, and I want to explain this to you. In Canada, you don't have to be a lawyer, a judge, a crown counsel to lay a criminal information. And I'm going to explain how the Mounted Police and every other police force are hiding. This is the book that covers all of us. I don't care who you are and what you do in this country. This is the 2022 Martin's Criminal Code of Canada. The sections in there include all of us. And you've been fed a real, like a fish when he takes a bite on a hook. Well, you've taken a bite on it hook, line, and sinker. You believe what the police are telling you, what the Crown is telling you. In order to lay an information, criminal even, as I said, you don't have to be a lawyer, a judge, a Crown prosecutor. The section under the Criminal Code of Canada. Let me go even further with this. If a police officer commits a sexual assault, and this really disturbs me, it really does, because you people are being jammed the truth, right, non-truth, right down your throat. You'll hear police officers say, oh, well, we can't touch them now. They've left the police force. That's a crock. Okay. This book, the Criminal Code of Canada, if a Mountie decides he wants to sexually assault someone and he decides to leave the police force, they want to charge him under the Police Act. Well, once he leaves their organization, they can't charge him, but he can still be charged under the Criminal Code of Canada. Wake up, Canadians. Wake the hell up. You all believe that what they're saying to you, the Crown says, oh, well, unless there's a real high chance of conviction, we don't proceed with it? Well, I got an email early this morning, and it kind of reminded me of a couple of things that have gone on there. There are other police officers and other forces. I'm not going to tell you the Mounties just on it, but I want to stick to this one, Justice for Arlene. But I want you to be aware of it, because I'm sure a lot of you are getting the same thing from other police forces, other Crown prosecutors. When that member leaves the force, I'm going to refer to Ottawa just quickly. The deputy chief who sexually assaulted 9 female police officers, and they were just getting ready to charge him, and he skipped to another police force. And they said, well, we can't do anything. Yeah, because you're charging him under the Police Act. Charge him under the Criminal Code. Then you can go after him anywhere and in any occupation he's in. And when this deputy chief in Ottawa went to another police force, he committed the same sexual acts. And they said the same thing. Oh, he's not a police officer anymore. But the Criminal Code doesn't care about that. All right, so I'm going to read this. I've already read the numbers off. They're tied to these documents. This is the information, excuse me, of as it presents by Donald Malcolm Dukes Matheson, retired and former RCMP officer. The informant says that he has reasonable and probable grounds to believe, and does believe, that David Eby, on or about the 27th day of June 2017, up to and including the 27th day of June 2021, at or in the province of British Columbia, being an official, the Attorney General did commit a breach of trust in connection with the duties of his office by obstructing an investigation contrary to Section 122A(b) of the Criminal Code of Canada. He doesn't walk or get off the hook. But what David Eby couldn't do was run for premier when he had a criminal information that was before the court that hadn't been settled. Was that the panic why all these had to disappear? Again, I can't talk about the conversation Clark Burnett had with me with regards to these, or I could explain my side of it and probably the court side of it. And this was filed the 20th of September 2021. And again, by one super the Justice of the Peace, Carla Jackson. And she said to me, Don, I can't do them for you. You have to do them, but I'll help you make sure they're proper. And she did. Now, the same title is the same number that Peter Juke on or about the 27th day of July 2017, up to and including the 27th day of 2021, at or in the province of British Columbia, being an official, the Assistant Deputy Attorney General did commit a breach of trust in connection with the duties of his office by obstructing an investigation contrary to Section 122A(b) of the Criminal Code of Canada. Do you notice it doesn't say anything about his office? It talks about the Criminal Code. I don't know how many times I'm going to repeat this, but this covers all of us. You don't get to walk. Okay, and you don't get to say to the public, oh, well, he's no longer an attorney general, so we can't charge him. You're damn right you can charge him. Those were informations that I laid. This one here, this guy is now the deputy commissioner in the province of British Columbia. And if you want to know anything about the mounted police, the higher up you go, the more it gets covered up. Because they got buddies that they did that for, and they're all up there in that upper circle now. It's almost tough to even lay a charge against a member. Count one, that Dwayne McDonald, on or about the 27th day of June 2016 and up to and including the 27th day of October 2021, at or in the province of British Columbia, being a peace officer. That's what the criminal code says. I don't think we have any more peace officers. They're called police officers. But that's what the code said. For the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and being entrusted with the execution of a process, to wit, investigating against Brian Gately, who he had command over, willfully misconducted himself in the execution of the process, contrary to Section 128 of the Criminal Code of Canada. That was count one. Count two is the same, that Dwayne McDonald, on or about the 27th day of June 2016 and up to and including the 27th day of October 2021, at or in the province of British Columbia, did obstruct justice, contrary to Section 139(1) of the Criminal Code of Canada. You don't get to walk on these. Okay. But this one's a dandy. These are the kind of people I talk about that I don't swear. I just say they're a real piece of work. It's the same information that Brenda Butterworth Carr, on or about the 27th day of June 2016 and up to and including the 27th day of June 2021, at or in the province of British Columbia, did obstruct justice contrary to Section 139(1) of the Criminal Code of Canada. She was one of the highest ranks we had. And in a couple of pages of paper here, I have her stepping down. It's kind of coincidental how things come along after something gets laid on them. That's kind of how the mounted police separate themselves from all these issues. I can't remember all the details on this. I have to look at them because, like I said the last podcast, you people out there are just waiting for me to make a mistake so you can go after me for it. But it gives her resignation, and it makes you sick reading it. How she believes that everything will be looked after properly, and she has the greatest of confidence in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Well, she was one. Why do you not think she's going to keep saying that? I want to finish these informations. That Kevin Hackett, another high-ranking member of the Mounted Police in Kelowna, on or about the 4th day of December 2017, up to and including the 27th day of June 2021, at or near the province of British Columbia, being a peace officer, again, for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and being entrusted with the execution of a process, to wit, investigating against Brian Gately, willfully misconducted himself in the execution of that process, contrary to Section 128 of the Criminal Code of Canada. And this is the document that I filed regarding Bert Westervelt, and that I wanted everything removed from the Crown Prosecutor's Office in Kelowna, and I wanted an outside police force. I put this in a request. Excuse me. Did we get it? Hell no, you're not going to get anything. Right. Today, what's happening is that anything that is involved with justice for Arlene is going to be blocked. I think it's interesting that there's an article here that I printed off thanks to a witness. She's related in part to Bert Westervelt. Bert Westervelt's relative is a fire marshal. And during the investigation that I went on to get these 22 witnesses, I revealed that he was burning buildings down intentionally. Had 2 trailers brought in there where he could keep receipts and photos of everything that was in the building that was burnt. He has a relative that's a fire marshal. How do you think he properly burned those buildings down? That's in this big binder, those people that wanted to talk about it. And this is the one that Clark Burnett wants to see disappear to reduce the amount of witnesses. This is an email this morning that it came from one of the witnesses, and she was reminding me that private prosecutions moved forward in Lake Country. That's those 6 right there. In Lake Country, woman's death. Watch news videos online, globalnews.ca. So if the news people had these private prosecutions, they weren't in camera, so why aren't they being investigated? Okay. Again, I can't say what Clark Burnett said to me in that courtroom. So it may be frustrating for you, but it's aggravating for me that I want to talk about the truth and I can't. And it's an organization that I belonged to at one time that's making sure I don't. And if this had been properly investigated, why did they miss 22 witnesses that can talk about the violence that Bert Westervelt was? A couple of punches in the face to women, one nearly choked to death. These people came to court and wanted to give evidence. And my comment was to the judge was that you have nothing before us on this docket afterwards, Your Honor. Well, here I go. Here's evidence. It's not what I want to do today, Mr. Matheson. Well, what happens if some of these witnesses disappear or they die? Well, one did die. And she had been a former coroner. Her last name was Witt, and a very honest individual. And she had more information to come forward. I have a statement from her, but it's not going to be the same as her testifying herself, who could hang Lisa Lapointe out to dry even over her moral compass. Is that who you have looking after things? This was a massive cover-up. And as I said to you earlier, this has been going on for 50 years inside the Mounted Police when it involves key people in the Mounted Police. I had said to you last week, deny, deny, deny. Cover up, cover up, cover up. Whatever you do, don't tarnish the badge. Really? Do you really believe that the Mounted Police are anything like the Royal Northwest Mounted Police or the Northwest Mounted Police? My God, people, wake up. Do I believe there's a lot of good police officers that are trying to do their best? But in an organization that they're not going to let them. When I was in Edmonton doing an interview here a couple of weeks pertaining to this case, there were 2 city police officers, and I was about a block and a half from the address I wanted to find, but I couldn't seem to get the street straight. And so I walked over to talk to them. And they wanted to know what was that, all that was written on my car. And I explained it to them. And both of them said, well, we're former Rockingham Mounted police officers. And do you know what I saw in both those men? They were happy. They were young. I'm saying 35 to 40. Both have families. And when I asked why they left, I'm not going to mention your name, guy, because of what the force does inside, Don. And that's what I'm going to now start bringing forward. Not here, because I want to finish this with justice for Arlene. So, and they said another 10 Mounted Police officers have left to join the Edmonton City Police. You know, whether you like it or not, public, you're losing some of the best police officers you've got. And most of them don't want to stay because it's going to affect their family and their health. Okay. So if I wanted to give you what a female police officer is looking forward to, like I have a lot of people say, Don, what do you think my daughter would like to join the Mounties? And my automatic answer is wait a couple of years till they get their act together. If the Mounted Police don't change within themselves, they're never going to change. My sign, wakeupcanada.info, doesn't say I dislike the police. In fact, up here on the wall, there's a 10-foot sign, Corplas, and it says, I support the police, but only the good ones. And I'm not out to get even with anybody in the Mounted Police because I don't have an axe to grind with them. But I had hoped years ago when I got involved, 50 years ago, maybe even 60, that they would change within themselves. They're not going to. Not unless you, the public, decides you want to put more pressure on them. I'm tired of listening to people say, well, Don, I know a good one. Yeah, well, I do too. But I asked the good ones, what are you doing about the bad ones? That's not fair, Don. But it's truthful, isn't it? They want their next rank, the next commission if they can get it. And they're prepared to go to any length to do it. I'm more afraid for you, the people. When a police cruiser pulls in behind you and pulls you over, what could happen to you? Or what could happen to your children or your grandchildren? And sadly, I'm going to go back to Justice. The organization that's investigating this, Justice for Arlene, they are not investigating it. They did I don't like the words, but they did a shit-out job of investigating it in the first place. If they had done their job properly, why would I have 22 witnesses here that they never interviewed? Because they were covering up for Brian Gately, a superintendent. And Brian Gately can cover up for a lot of upper ranks because he knows who else was involved. Yeah. Well, Bert Westervelt was out running around. I'm not going to call him Berticus or whatever the heck they call him. His name is Bert. He has never been before a hearing, only to get bail when they incarcerated him for about 8 days. Bert Westervelt can't stand time. He'll never survive it. So he's out there running around doing what he wants, saying, well, I didn't do anything wrong. There's 22 witnesses here, and 2 recently that I went to Edmonton to interview. I think their evidence alone could convict Bert Westervelt. So why are the Mounted Police not stepping in and reinvestigating? It's what they say in their summation here. It's on my phone I got this morning that they wish the Westervelt family, the Henning family, the best of good health. And that if we can be of any service, let us know. What a hypocritical comment. The fact that this is being covered up, they're not going to try and uncover it now. So who's going to do this? Yeah, we know we can't trust the police. They police the police. So who do we go to? Can't trust the Crown. Yeah. So what is it you are trying to do, people? Do you respect the law? Is that what you do? Or do you respect justice? And the bottom line for both of those, how about the truth? Just the truth, the simple truth. It's not very complicated. The Henning family has been 8.5 years. Where is all this right now? Do you see Mike Farnworth saying anything? The hell you do. That man is so involved in covering all this up. And the new Attorney General of Canada, what's he doing about the Attorneys General? That's his job to investigate them. Why is he not doing it? Because he knows how corrupt it is in there. And besides, they say, well, some of these are my friends. I got a document here. I got it this morning. The man's name is Daniel J. Touchette. It's spelled Touchette. He's got a master MBA, and I got 7 pages from him. And he's internationally known, internationally recognized for over 25 years of service. And he's now talking about the Mounted Police, saying that, well, he only said about $134 million has been paid out of your pockets, people, to pay for all that's happening. It's not for it's not for duty they're doing or investigating files. It's the lawsuits that are being filed against police officers. And he's out about $300 million. It's well past $500 million that you're paying out right now for police officers that have committed offenses. They're on full pay while they're suspended. Some of them retire on full pay. So when are you going to pay attention, public? You want justice for Arlene? Debbie Henning is on her way shortly to Kelowna. And if that's the way she's got to do it, all the power to her. She's going to use political parties to put some of the documents that I'm talking about. But after this, the political parties can have copies of what I've got. If that's what it takes, political clout. God, who pleases our politicians? But if that's the way it's got to work, then I'm all for it. And if I can help them, I will help them. I don't care for politics. It's self-serving. They all make promises that they can never keep. They look after themselves. But if we can get a party strong enough to bring this out in the open, okay, and I think it could do it. I think it's sad that that's the way we have to go, that we don't have police officers that can be honest within themselves. I'll tell you how far behind the Mounted Police are. About 3 days ago, they announced that they were putting cameras on the uniforms of their members. My God, how far behind are they of all other police forces? But we're famous for that. Mounted Police are famous for that. So if you can't trust a police officer, and in Arlene Westervelt's case, she should never have trusted them. Arlene couldn't do it, but her family tried. And the two investigative members, they're caught on a tape. Well done by Shelley, by Deb, and by another friend that was sitting at the table. And the two Mounties said, "Are we on camera?" And then laughed. And I think it was Deb or Shelley that says, "No, but are you? Are we on camera with you?" They got quite a chuckle. They also got quite a conversation from those two investigative men about who Bert Westervelt was and still is. They don't know they were recorded. And the gals transcribed it so you can tell what voice is saying it. Why would the Mounted Police want this document? Because it involves one of their own. Bert Westervelt's friend, Brian Gately, he and Gately were involved in a joint marijuana grow-up. Not just one, but two of them. And the man I interviewed in Edmonton said, "I know more about Bert Westervelt than he does, Don." Well, the individual that was helping Bert at the time can't be charged for what they were doing because limitation of time is gone. And he's kind of a man that wouldn't want to be let off. He's prepared to deal with this in court. And when you hear the information he has, I literally dropped my pen when we were talking. I said, "I just can't believe what I'm getting from you." He said, "I know him better than he does, Don. And this guy was tough in his time, believe me, and he's still tough right now." So why are the Mounted Police? It says that this all can be reopened. People can be recharged on new information. So why in hell are the Mounted Police sitting on their hands, not wanting to reinvestigate? Because I just told you, they say cover up, cover up, cover up. So you, the public, it's time for you to get off your backside and decide to put some pressure on. I don't care if it's your local politician. I don't care if it's your lawyers. Do something more than just sitting, listening, and watching. One day this could be you. Okay? And if you want to look at old documents pertaining to the Mounted Police, right now, 3 other police forces have come forward in British Columbia to talk about the death and the sexual violence. That's polite, the rape of 3 police officers in different police forces. And when you hear the year that it happened, why is it still taking 5 and 6 more years to even get before the public? Oh, well, it's complex, Don. It's complex. Complicated, sorry. Really? When does the truth become complicated? And particularly with Arlene Westervelt, justice must not only be done, it must be seen to be done. And it's not been seen to be done here. So I'm not going to run around and keep blaming the police. I want to blame the Crown, their prosecutors. I want to blame our court system. Right? The delay in time of getting a document from the Crown to the defense attorney or vice versa. Do you know how many thousands of charges have disappeared in the last 2-3 years? Because due process of law is not being followed. We can't always blame the Mounted Police. We can't always blame the police. I like what some of them are doing, and the comment is damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's just about every police force, the members that are working inside it, a good part of the problem comes from their own outfit. I recently received 676 documents on a court-filed document that's now about to come forward regarding Dr. Mike Webster and Greg Passy. I'm not going to get into this because I'm supposed to be talking about justice for Arlene. But you have to realize that I am so handicapped because I can't talk about 5 appearances I made in court because the judge, I want to find out who did this. Because my understanding, as I said a couple of weeks ago, is that I believe that about 2 months after I moved back into Alberta, that they had said that one judge can't do this anymore. It takes 3. So obviously they're worried about biases, prejudice, obsessive compulsive disorder. That's what all your judges have. They're no different than you and I. If you think they are, ask lawyers why they judge shop. You'll hear them say, well, we don't go before that one. We don't go before this one either. If you want decent justice in Canada, public, then stand up for it. It's just not going to come your way. Many years ago, when I was in a uniform, it was in your favor. It's not anymore. 53% of all criminal charges laid in this country will never see the light of day. Why? Because we got Crown prosecutors that are too lazy, say, oh, well, we don't have a very good chance of conviction. Is that the line they measured by? Bert Westervelt has never been before a cross-examination by a good Crown prosecutor. He's never had to give evidence in court, which will catch him on what he says he didn't do, because those 22 witnesses can contradict him. So what's he going to say when he's in court under oath? Well, the accused doesn't have to testify. But with the volume of people here, that if the Mounted Police properly investigate, if they can't, then let's bring in an outside police force. You've got 2 police forces right now from another province that's investigating the Mounted Police in here. How long have we been at this, Stu?
Almost an hour.
Okay. So again, I've got kind of tongue-tied. I can't talk about what's in that binder. Okay. We put it together outside of the court, but it's now been filed with the court. The Crown prosecutor has a copy too. The court has a copy, and I have a copy. So why can't we talk about these witnesses? I don't want to do time any more than anybody else does. But if we don't lift this in camera or get an explanation by it, then I'm going to run the chance of doing that. I think if I have to go to jail for a month over honesty and helping somebody that needs help, then I'm prepared to do it. So I want you, the public, to ask why this case is in camera. And more important, ask why the Mounted Police have not interviewed 22, 23 under witnesses. And if you saw the email I got this morning when they said, wow, we've done everything we could. We've covered all our bases. To hell they have. They've covered what they need to cover this up. So I could go further. I could go more. I could talk about documents I have here. Is it going to do any good? Okay. They're trying to shut me down from speaking the truth. Like I say, I can get partway into a sentence and I'm going to say, whoops, that's in camera, Don. I can't talk about it. Okay. I've asked for it to be released in camera. And in a short while, if it's not, and there's no justification for why are they trying to protect these politicians? I don't want to protect them. They're the reason some of this isn't going forward. David Eby in 2016, 17, as I said, was the Attorney General. He didn't care about seniors. He didn't care about prosecuting lawyers that had taken millions of dollars out of their seniors' trust accounts. He also wrote a book on how to beat the police. Do you think any of that's changed inside him? Of course it hasn't. I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg right now to the volume that's out there going on. And most people are going to keep doing what they're doing. And when they stop? When they're caught. And then they apologize. Well, it's a little late, isn't it? The harm that's done to Arlene Westervelt's memory and the Henning family and the other people can't be redone. So when I look at myself on this camera right now and I see the crest behind my left shoulder, that crest says Maintenant les droits. Maintain the right. So in other words, tell the truth. How many mounted police officers are wearing that crest? How many city police officers are wearing a similar crest? And again, there's over 300 other police forces in Canada. And I'm going to say this again. If the mounted police are that bad, how bad are these other police forces? And again, I'm not after, I wore that uniform. I know how hard it is for a member to try and do his job properly. And I'm going to repeat this again. You are losing some of the finest police officers that ever came into the mounted police. Because in order to get along, they have to go along. And if you think it's bad, take a look at where we are in this country right now. You happy with that? Of course you're not. But you've done nothing about it for years. So there's a surplus of 30-some million if I deducted all the other people that support the police, the courts. So 30 million people are doing nothing about this except talking about it. I don't get offended when my friends say, well, Don, do you know how long you've been at this? Is it going to make a change? Well, I got to hope that someday something will happen. So I'm going to get Jude to shut this down, Craig. Yeah, he's in the bathroom. I'm kind of losing my voice here anyways, but I can't produce these documents. Okay. I can say, well, I got upset because of what you tried to do to me, but that doesn't make it right for me to go do it. I have to regulate what the court says I have to regulate. I don't agree with it. I think totally it's right out of line right now because I don't feel that this court trial should be blocking people from watching the trial and having comments afterwards. What is it the mounted police are hiding that they don't want this be out of camera? There's volumes and volumes of documents I could read to you. I don't want to read those volumes. I'm going to be saying pretty much what I'm saying now, but the proof is in those documents. And the ones I really want to talk about are in camera. Why are they in camera? I watched my last video and I was tongue-tied. because I got partway into a sentence and said, whoops, Don, you're talking about what happened in the court now. I can't even have a conversation about Judge Burnett, what he and I talked about, and what he said I couldn't do, but he knew I could. But he could get away with it because it's in camera. He can't get caught on what he said to me. I'm going to shut it down, Jude. Thanks. So I appreciate you listening to this right now. This isn't over, believe me. And there's 2 or 3 others that I'm going after just as hard. There are other police forces. So my comments to you is that they always will be good health to you and yours. Much happiness. Stay well. That's not a request. That's an order. Okay. We only want to